Hello and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. So today's topic is the need for caloric cycling during diets. So, most people when they approach diets, they approach it with a mindset of kind of a consistent level of reduction. So they know they need to reduce calories in order to lose weight, and typically they're going to figure that out either by an actual caloric amount. So if it fits your macros or they do calorie counting, they're going to figure out what that amount is. They're going to reduce by that amount and then just kind of hold that steady the whole time. Then there's people who worry about kind of the fluctuation levels of their food intake. So they might have a certain kind of foods that they eat in a certain order every day, and what they're going to do is they're going to reduce that order, reduce that amount at certain meals to get that caloric reduction. But the idea commonly is that they're going to create a sense of reduction, but they're going to keep that pretty much consistent, keep it about the same all the time. So for an example of this might be if somebody's previously been eating, say, 3,000 calories a day, they're going to drop down to, say, 2,500, and they're going to plan to kind of stay there until they look the way they want or until kind of progress slows down. So often people don't often think of the next step. So they think of the reduction that they need, but they just think it's going to magically take them where they want to be. They don't know, they don't usually think whether that reduction is actually related to where they want. So for example, if a person weighs, say, 200 pounds, they want to be 180, they make a reduction and they usually assume that that's just going to take them the whole way to 180, whereas sometimes it doesn't. But when they reach a plateau or the weight loss kind of stalls out, then what they'll typically do is go ahead and make another reduction. But again, once they make that reduction, they kind of make it consistently. So there's really no fluctuation. They reduce, and then they just wait to see what happens. And the problem with that is that the body is designed to adjust to consistent demands. So if we come into the gym every day and we work out, our body adjusts to that. If we go and we run every day, our body adjusts to that. So again, the body is designed to adjust to whatever we do to it, assuming that what we do with it isn't something extreme. So if I try to run 10 miles the very first day and I've never ran before, my body's not going to adjust to that very well. You will probably have kicked your body's butt that day and you won't be able to do it again. But if you give it a consistent level of demand, one that it can achieve. So an example of this being dieting is if I did reduce, say, 3,000 to 2,500, that's not such a reduction that I'm going to die. So my body will adjust to that. If I try to go from 3,000 down to 500, that is not good. That is not going to work. So your body will freak out. It can't adjust to 500. 500 is way below what it needs to stay alive. So when we give it consistent demands, our body will adjust. And this is not a good thing for dieting. So the negative effects of adjustments when it comes to dieting is if we reduce our calories, our body will adjust to trying to learn how to run and operate off of those lesser level of calories. So it'll try to reduce its metabolism, and it does that by a whole bunch of processes. So it'll kind of reduce the speed in which it does everything throughout the day. So it reduces its speed of, like, say, digestion. It reduces its speed of repairing muscles. So too severe of a caloric reduction can actually impair recovery from workouts. And not only because of the missing calories, which might be missing proteins and the building blocks needed to build the muscle, but also just the process of building muscle slows down. So that becomes some of the challenges. The body kind of lowers its processing speeds. And that way, if it was previously operating at a 3,000 calorie level, it can now operate at only 2,500. So that's its goal, is if you give it, if you've been giving it X and now you give it Y, it tries to learn how to live off of Y. And then we also have reductions in energy and our willingness to be active to do things. So the body, as part of its adjustment process, it'll send signals to, if you don't have to do something, it'll try to get you not to do it. So you'll be sitting on the couch and being like, oh man, I wish I would go do this and this and this, but you just don't feel motivated, you don't feel like doing it, and you're kind of, you can even tell in your mind, you're like, why am I doing this? Like, I know I should do it, and I kind of really, I want to do it, but I just can't seem to get up and get moving. And that process comes from the body trying to down-regulate its energy expenditure to match this new lower level of intake, energy intake. So that's basically what happens. That's why people often feel less motivated, and they struggle with motivation a few days into a diet or like a week or so into a diet. And that's part of the body's adjustment period. So if we think of this, we can relate this to kind of the process of like running a mile a day. So if I ran 1 mile every day, the first day is going to be horrible. So, because typically we don't run a mile every day. So the first day is not going to be very fun. So it's going to feel awful. You'll survive and you can do it, but you won't really be happy that you did it. The second day you'll get up, you'll be sore, you won't want to do it again, but you'll do it again. Then the third day, the fourth day, the fifth day. Then like say a week into it, you're like, okay, I really don't like this, but I'm starting to get the hang of it. I start to kind of know what to expect. My body's adjusting to this. And if you started running a mile a day and say you're 2 or 3 weeks in, it now becomes kind of a normal thing. So it still might be challenging, but it's a familiar challenge. It's not a challenge anymore that your body has to majorly adjust to. It already went through that adjustment period to get used to it. So just as our body can get used to running 1 mile a day, it can get used to a lower caloric intake. And again, it does so by just learning how to run more efficiently and slowing down processes that it deems are not 100% necessary. So this is often true of, like, I've worked with people with eating disorders, anorexia and bulimia, where their net caloric intake is insanely low to the point where they'll start losing hair. Their skin becomes very flaky and dry. Nails become very brittle. They start even having like teeth problems. So the body starts it's so low in calories that it shuts down processes related to those features because it doesn't believe our hair to be 100% necessary. So it'll try to leach all the protein it can out of that to try to deal with other things like keeping body organs alive. So our body is really good, in a sense, at adapting to lower caloric amounts to try to survive the situation we're in. So it'll pick off certain processes. So in general, for most people with most normal style diets, it's just going to slow processes down. It's not going to completely stop doing some. So, but that's the idea. So if we give our body a consistent level of calories, it's like running a mile a day. Our body adjusts over time, and then it no longer becomes a challenge, and we see a plateau in fat loss. So then we try to reduce again, and again the body plateaus at that, and very quickly we're eating like nothing, and we're afraid that we have to eat like that for the rest of our life. And for some degree, yes, because your body has now learned to downgrade. So when you get to quote-unquote where you want to be, and then you try eating anything else, if you come back up too fast in your calories, it's going to hold on to a lot of that increased calories as stored body fat. So what people don't, sometimes you'll hear people talk about reverse dieting, and what that refers to is after like somebody does like an aesthetic-based competition, they often have to regulate the way in which they bring their calories back up, so that way they can kind of increase their calorie intake at the speed in which the body can re-increase its metabolism. So that way, as the body speeds up, they give it more calories, but there's not a big differential to where they start dumping in a bunch of calories before the body can really burn through them, and then just gain all the fat back that they tried to lose over the contest prep. So that's the idea. That's the negative definitions and reasons why we don't want a steady caloric intake deficit. So how do we battle that? All those negative effects is we create caloric cycling, hence the title of the podcast. So what our goal would be is, if we think of that same concept of running a mile a day, is if I stayed with a mile, so say we reduced our calories, say 500 calories, and we want to keep that because we know it's productive, but now we want to introduce some fluctuations within that 500 in order to prevent the body from adjusting. This would be similar to staying with a 1 mile run a day, but changing it to different intervals of sprinting and walking. So if one day, if we think of a 1 mile run as like say 4 laps around a track, like everybody's high school had a track, a running track, quarter-mile track. So think of it being like, okay, if I asked you one day to sprint the first and third laps, but walk the second and fourth, that's still going to be a mile, but it's going to feel differently than just kind of a slow-paced jog for a mile. Then the next day, I told you to sprint the second and fourth laps, but walk the first and third. That's going to, again, feel a little bit different. Then what if I told you to sprint the straightaways, but walk the curves? And you can see how there's a lot of fluctuations we could create within just that 1 mile in those 4 laps. to where every day you're running only a mile, but your body has a way less chance to adjust to it. So for those of us who have not ran a mile in a million different ways like this, I actually have, and it's absolutely horrible when you make adjustments like that because your body doesn't know what's coming up, and it has a harder time adjusting to that. So I've run miles at different interval speeds before as part of an experiment when I was younger, and it was awful. So where you might like sprint for 2 minutes, walk for a minute, sprint for 2 minutes, walk for a minute, and it beats you up trying to do that kind of stuff. But what it shows is that even though the 1 mile is consistent, the manner in which you try to meet that 1 mile does, if you make changes to that, the body can't adjust to that as well. And the reason why I was doing it at that time is I was experimenting to see if I was getting more fat loss from a variable intervals compared to a consistent level of cardio. So just jogging the 1 mile for, whatever pace I can maintain for an entire mile versus sprint intervals. And I lost way more weight when I did the sprint intervals, so that was definite proof for me. And then like research and studies and stuff kind of confirmed that as well. So we want to do that with our body, with our caloric intake. So we want to have differing amounts so that way we prevent our body's ability to just downgrade and adjust to the lowest level of caloric intake. So when it does that, again, it has all those negative effects of reducing metabolism. It reduces our energy and our willingness to be active. So we want to avoid all those negative things. So what we want to do is we want to create caloric fluctuations. However, we have to be able to track that. So what we do, and one of the ways I do it, is to track a weekly average. So if you add up the caloric intake from, say, Sunday to Saturday, and then you average that out, that gives you a number. And I'm going to give you more specifics here, an example in a second. Is you have to have some tracking ability, so that way you can make changes as you see changes needed made, like if you plateau with weight losses, and or just tracking for future diets and seeing what results you got this time, and then you'll know better what to do next time. So we want to create fluctuations, but we want to have them trackable. So usually what I do is I think of a weekly average, and I pay attention to that weekly average so I can help, again, like we said, track progressive caloric decreasing over time and seeing the results I get. So an example of this would be, let's say somebody's training 4 days a week. And let's say 2 of them are lower body and 2 of them are upper body. This is just a general example. Is maybe on our lower body days, we might have at maintenance calories. So again, let's go with an example, maybe say 2,000 calories. So somebody believes that 2,000 calories would keep them kind of where they're at. So they want to lose weight, they know they have to reduce from 2,000. Okay, but we know 2,000 is kind of the maintenance level. So on lower body days, I'll actually eat the maintenance or even 5% above. So we'd actually eat a little bit extra. And the reason why we do this is it goes towards energy for an awesome killer workout, because when your leg days go well, you burn a significant amount of calories during the activity of the leg day when you're fully fueled and energized to do so. And then also you can create an enormous amount of muscle damage. And then that muscle damage actually helps you burn more calories during the recovery phase from that leg training. So typically when we do lower body days versus upper body days, we can just cause more chaos and damage to the body. So giving yourself proper, like a full fuel tank to do well during lower body training is a big bonus for overall caloric expenditure and burning up of body fat. So again, through the activeness you can be that day training legs, and then also the recovery period following that day's training. Okay, so on leg day, we would do at maintenance or 5% above. Don't worry about gaining fat from that 5% above. You won't. If you freak out about it and you don't want to do it and you don't want to believe me that you won't, then just do maintenance level. But again, that extra amount goes towards having a killer workout, and it actually goes towards fixing muscle recovery, repairing that has delayed on the other days when you're lower. So on upper body days, you might do 10 to 15% below maintenance. And then on the off days, we might do even up to 20% below maintenance. So again, example of somebody doing a 2,000 calorie diet. On leg days, they're going to do 2,000 to 2,100. And that represents maintenance or 5% over. On upper body days, they're going to do 1,700 to 1,800. And that represents about 10 to 15% below maintenance. Then on off days, they might only do 1,500 to 1,600 calories, and that represents around 20 to 25% below maintenance. So what that equates to is, as you can see, they have fluctuations. On 2 days of the week, they're going to be eating 2,000 calories. On 2 days of the week, they're going to be eating about 1,700 or so. And then on the other 3 days, they're going to be eating down around 15 to 16. So there's a big fluctuation we have there, which prevents the body from being able to downgrade to only a certain amount. So the weekly average, when you follow that, would be somewhere between 1,700 to 1,800. So instead of us just eating, say 1,750, let's split the difference. Instead of us just eating 1,750 and having our body downgrade to 1,750, and now 1,750 becoming the new maintenance, that's not what we want. By having fluctuations, your body can't downgrade to anything because it doesn't know what the hell to adjust to. So 1 or 2 days you're having 2,000, 1 or 2 days you're having 1,700, 2 or 3 days you're having 1,500. So the second it goes to adjust down to the 1,500, all of a sudden you have a 2,000 calorie day. Then it goes, oh, this is great. I can speed up all my processes. I can stay where I'm supposed to be. I can stay hyperactive. And then all of a sudden the next day you drop back down, and it goes, oh crap, what the hell? Like, I kept myself speeding up, I kept myself fast, so now all of a sudden I'm going to have to start downgrading again. And then all of a sudden, again, you have a high day. So the body never has a chance really to downgrade to the lowest level. So when you surprise it or shock it with a lower level day, when its metabolism and the body mechanics and everything are at its top functional speed, you chew through a lot of body fat that way. So by keeping the body shocked and keeping it at running at a higher level, when you shock it with lower amounts, you get more fat loss on those days. So it actually makes your lower caloric days even more effective for fat loss. And then your higher days, where you're still like a little below maintenance or around maintenance, you're not gaining body fat at all, and you're actually still losing body fat. It's just a slower process. So some days you're walking, some days you're sprinting, some days you're walking, some days you're sprinting, but you're always moving forward, rather than with a consistent reduction in calories, every day you're meanderingly walking, like drudgingly, sluggishly forward. So instead of us just walking at a really crap pace the whole time, we're actually getting some sprints in there. So sprint, walk, sprint, walk, sprint, walk. So that's the idea of caloric fluctuations and why caloric cycling is extremely helpful for dieting, because not only does it get you better results, but it also keeps your health, your base level of metabolism higher. So that way when you find the body condition you want and you go back to reintroducing more calories or go back to kind of a little bit of a looser stranglehold on your calories, your body doesn't gain back fat. Ugh, can't talk. It doesn't do that as quickly. So by keeping your metabolism higher, by using caloric fluctuations, you're going to get less of a rebound after your diets. Okay. Now, that works really, really well. Now, what happens if you don't count calories? Okay, so all you have to do is just add and eliminate kind of like carbs around your training. So you can do kind of carbs before and post training, and or like an intra-workout drink. So for example, on leg days, you can have a banana before training, you can have Gatorade during your training, and have a bagel afterwards. That's going to give you a lot of energy. So a little bit of energy before and during, and then a little bit of carbs afterwards to kind of help with recovery and energy for the rest of the day. Then upper body days, maybe you'll only have the banana before and the bagel after, but no Gatorade. And then on your rest days, you don't have any of that. You just replace it with a really smaller, healthy meal like an egg omelet and with some vegetables. So maybe on like your leg day with the banana, the Gatorade, and the bagel, maybe you have around 400 calories. Then on the upper body day, by only having the banana and the bagel but no Gatorade, maybe you only have 300 calories. And then on the egg omelet day, maybe you only end up having 200 calories. So that's how you create a fluctuation like that. So if you don't want to count calories, that's okay. You just add and eliminate carb-based foods, energy-based foods around your workout times. Cool. So the key is to fluctuate your calories so your body doesn't negatively adjust downward to a lower caloric intake level. So we know that we need lower calories for fat loss, but if we create cycling, like we said, it's going to be a series of kind of sprinting and walking towards fat loss, rather than like a sprint, slow down to a walk, slow down to a crawl, slow down to the person just laying there doing nothing. So that's usually what we see is when people do steady state caloric reduction, they get a big drop off the first week related to water weight changes, water retention changes. They get maybe a little bit of progress second and third weeks, then it kind of plateaus from there. So if you want to prevent that plateauing, then add in these caloric cycles. Cool. So hopefully this was helpful and it gave you a couple ideas on how to do it on your own. So do this if your goal is to lose body fat and you're using a caloric reduction diet. So add in caloric cycling like we talked about here. If you're having trouble figuring it out and you'd like some help, of course we're going to help you if you'd like. So that's kind of how we pay for this place. So you can email us at brutaliron@gmail.com and we'll help you set up a nutrition plan. Now it would be like a service, but it'll be personalized to you. We'll write specific foods and really help detail everything personalized to you. So if you don't want to do that though, use the examples we talked about and you can still get the same results. It just takes a little more legwork on your end. Cool. So hopefully this information was helpful and you liked it. So if you do like this type of information, you can find more from us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Brutal Iron Gym. Also, if you like the podcast, you can sign up to become a patron of the podcast by donating $10 or more per month towards the podcast. And for your donation, we're going to send you exclusive monthly content, including a monthly training program of your choice. So this is new for us. So we previously just sent out a general program. We had feedback that people wanted more specific. So we're now going to offer programs that are kind of more strength focused or more aesthetic focused or more overall health focused. So for your $10 a month donation, you can get a training program of your choice per month for free. Technically, kind of, sort of. So for the $10 donation. But you get monthly programming for $10 a month. Good Lord, that's pretty cheap. So, and they're really good programs. They get renewed and refreshed every single month. And then we're also going to send you extra information about kind of nutrition and mindset stuff every month. And all that's exclusive just for you, just for our patrons. So if you'd like an example of some of those monthly programs, shoot us an email at brutalirongym@gmail.com and we'll send you samples. Now, if you'd like to become a patron, you can do so directly on the Podbean app, or you can send us an email or do a Google search, Become a Patron, Brutal Iron Gym Podcast. And again, for $10 a month, you get all the programming you want, and hopefully you use it and do wonderful with it and make amazing progress. Now, if you like the podcast, also make sure you share it with friends and family. So the more people we help, the happier the world will be. And if you have any questions, feedback, or suggestions, we'd love to hear from you. The podcast is for you, so we want to know what you want to learn about. You can reach us at our email, brutalirongym@gmail.com. As always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening.